Hello everyone, the Nerdy Steve here, and today we will be featuring Mono Red in Explorer. A link to the deck is in the description below. I'm going to talk about the general game plan, some of the specific card choices, and a little bit about the sideboard, and then we'll play a couple of matches. So, let's go. This deck is not going to surprise you in what it has and what it's trying to do. If you played Standard over the past couple of years, a lot of these cards will be very, very familiar. And so the general idea of the deck is you want to play some aggressively costed creatures on turns 1 to 3. So maybe a Soul-Scar Mage followed by a Kari, followed by a Stomp or an Anax, followed by a turn 4 Torbran that pumps up all your creatures to deal a lot of damage, or an Embercleave, which on a Anax specifically is a lethal threat very, very quickly. And that is what the deck does, and it does it very, very reliably. And now let's talk a little bit more about the cards. So, one thing that is very, very interesting and kind of something new that I've seen, and what has made, I think, Mono Red very popular in Explorer and very good lately, is the inclusion of Reckless Rage. This card seems a little innocuous, but one of the problems for Mono Red, I think, lately, is that there are a lot of very big creatures in Explorer, and creatures that you kind of have to deal with as soon as you possibly can. And Reckless Rage kind of fits into this deck in a very specific way where it can deal with those opposing creatures, but the 2 damage to your own creature isn't going to kill your creature because this deck, surprisingly, is very, very resilient to dealing 2 damage to your own cards. And I want to talk about, so, Soul-Scar Mage, it is a 1-2 with prowess. So, when you use Reckless Mage, targeting itself and 4 damage to an opponent's creature, it becomes a 2-3, and guess what? It doesn't die to Reckless Rage. Kumano faces Kakkazan, can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature when it enters the battlefield. When that creature enters the battlefield. And so, Burning-Tree Emissary, if it's a 3-3, doesn't die. Steam-Kin, if it has a couple +1/+1 counters on it, doesn't die. And Kari doesn't die. Right? And neither does Anax or Bonecrusher Giant. So, Reckless Rage is a very, very efficient removal spell that this deck really hasn't had access to a main deck version of. Or, I mean, it's always had access to it, but I think the inclusion of it kind of really helps the deck stand in the current metagame. And so we have this here, and this is also, besides Stomp from Bonecrusher Giant, one of the really only instant speed interactions that this deck has. And so that's also very, very important to note how this deck is very, very aggressive, right? And we only have Stomp and Reckless Rage as interaction, and I guess if you want to include Fanatical Firebrand. So that is also something to be cognizant of, right? So, Soul-Scar Mage is besides having prowess, right? It also has a very interesting ability where if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature an opponent controls, you put that many -1/-1 counters on that creature instead. And what Soul-Scar Mage does is it also allows you, maybe with Stomp, or a creature that's really, really big and Reckless Rage can't kill in one shot. Maybe Reckless Rage can kill a lot of 4 toughness creatures in the mono green deck, but if they have something with 5 toughness, maybe it's just too out of reach. But Soul-Scar Mage will shrink permanently that creature, so you can either deal with it later on, or it just won't kill your thing in combat, right? And so it does a lot of things there, besides also just comboing with the Reckless Rage in itself. Fanatical Firebrand is nothing very, very special about it. Just a 1/1 haster that can ping something, and it can be a 2/2 haster if Kumano face Kakkazan is out. And then we also have Kumano, which is a new addition to this deck. It's a saga that on the first stage it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker, which is also a very, very powerful thing to do. A lot of times, like, one of the worst or most powerful planeswalkers currently in the Explorer format is Teferi. And having lots of cards that can interact with Teferi is something decks want. And if an opponent downticks a Teferi, so does a -3 to put something you control into your library, playing Kumano after it will kill the Teferi because it deals 1 damage to each opposing planeswalker, right? So it's also just a very, not just deals damage to players, but it can also help finish all planeswalkers or help you put them into more manageable loyalty. But the second stage we talked about, when you cast your next creature spell, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Now, this is a very, very hard ability to you. It doesn't seem that powerful, but if you do Kumano faces Kakkazan on turn 1, then followed maybe by turn 2 a Burning-Tree Emissary into a Burning-Tree Emissary, that extra power, like the 2/2 becoming a 3/3, it seems like it shouldn't be as powerful as it is, but I can assure you it is literally game-changing and pretty backbreaking for a lot of decks. And you just have to set up to figure out what you want to get pumped, and sometimes you need to, play your spells in a different order than you normally would. But that ability just seems so underrated, but it's very, very powerful. And do not underestimate the power of the second stage of Kumano faces Kakkazan. But I want to go, the flipped version is it finally becomes a 2/2 creature that can attack, so Etching of Kumano has already dealt 1 damage when it entered the battlefield. It's already given a +1/+1 counter to a creature. So it's already dealt a couple damage, hopefully. And the 2/2 creature is kind of just icing on the cake. However, it doesn't have an irrelevant ability. The exile ability of Etching of Kumano is so important here. If you kill opponents' creatures, they get exiled instead of going to the graveyard. And that is really, really great for stopping stuff like Old Growth Troll. Stopping your opponent from reanimating creatures that have already died, maybe like a Tenacious Underdog or other things like that. And it randomly is very, very, very relevant, and it stops, angels that are killed from triggering the 1/4 in the green-white angel deck, right? So it has a lot of very random interactions with opponents' effects that require things to die, and this stops that. And so that's also not something to underestimate and to consider when you're thinking about what your opponent is doing and what their deck is doing. And then we have a bunch of 2-drops. Kari Zev is very, very good. Steam-Kin is a creature that, gives you a lot of mana the more you cast stuff. But what Steam-Kin also does, and a lot of decks kind of stopped running Steam-Kin in a while, but Runaway Steam-Kin is a very good holder for Embercleave. A lot of these creatures don't get very, very big. Besides Anax and Bonecrusher, you don't have anything that's going to have 4 power. And Steam-Kin is just another way for you to do that and to reliably get something that's very, very big very, very quickly. Then we also have Burning-Tree Emissary, which allows you to have really explosive turn 2 starts. And then, of course, we have 4 of each Bonecrusher Giant and Anax, which are just, possibly some of the Bonecrusher Giant is one of the strongest red cards printed in the last couple of years, and Anax is the best holder of Embercleave, and you will kill your opponents out of nowhere very, very reliably with those 2 cards. And then we have Torbran, which just makes all your red threats very, very powerful and that much more lethal. It's very important to know with Torbran, he does not combo with Ramunap Ruins because it is colorless, but Den of the Bugbear and the Goblin Crates are red, so he combos very well with these. And Torbran also is a very, very good card to cast with Kumano because the Kumano will now deal 3 damage instead of 1. And then we have our sideboard for, again, more graveyard strategies. And in general, when, you talk about sideboards, you just take out the cards that are worse and you add in cards that are better. Which is, a lot easier said than done, right? So we have more graveyard stuff. Reckless Rage, again, it's very good for opposing creature strategies. It's really, really, really good against the big mono green decks because 4 toughness is a very, very common threshold that you need to get with your removal, and Reckless Rage hits that and can kill a lot of their things. Rampaging Ferocidon, again, for life gain decks like the Angel, and Cat Oven, it can really, really punish those decks that rely on that repetitive life gain and creatures entering the battlefield all the time. Chandra, maybe for more. Chandra does a lot of things, but against certain aggro decks, she's really, really good. And against decks like controller mid-range decks where you need maybe more card advantage and removal in one card, you have Chandra. Hazoret, again, kind of the same thing. Fry, uncounterable removal against blue and white. More graveyard removal. Goblin Chainwhirler is very, very good in very specific matchups where your opponent might have a lot of cheap threats or you really need a big, beefy creature. And then we also have Rampaging Ferocidon. And also, before we go into the matches, I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about the stereotype of the mono red player. And people say that mono red is very, very easy to play. And I don't want to say it's like the most complicated thing in the world because ideally, I mean, it's a very straightforward deck. But there is a lot more nuance and decision making than a lot of people would think. And specifically, I want to talk about, like, with Kumano faces Kakkazan, adds a nice layer of decisions that seem very, very easy and not obvious if you're not actively playing it. And even a lot of mono red players might not notice this, like, as stuff they're actively doing. But I just want to talk about something real quick. So if you have an opening hand of Kumano faces Kakkazan and Soul-Scar Mage, and Stomp with Bonecrusher Giant, right? Excuse me. You can, on turn 1, play either Soul-Scar Mage or Kumano. Very, very, very easy thing, right? But which one you cast can really, really change the outcome of the game on turn 1. And I want to look at that repercussions, right? If you do Kumano faces Kakkazan on turn 1, and then your opponent follows up with a turn 1 creature, that on your second turn, you want to stomp, not only are you then wasting the second stage of Kumano faces Kakkazan, right? But if you played the Soul-Scar Mage, you're missing out on a lot of damage. Because you can Soul-Scar Mage on turn 1, you stomp their 1-drop, and then you can attack for that too, right? And like, that is such a little difference in your turn 1 decision making that affects what you do on turn 2, whether you want to stomp or not, that then affects on turn 3, because now you either are attacking with an etching of Kumano or you're not, so there's just a lot of things going on there only based on your turn 1 play that will branch out into maybe dealing more or less damage overall, but you also, whether you were mana efficient in killing what your opponent had, and so, and that's much more important in game 2 and 3 when you know what you're playing, but on game 1, and you don't know what you're playing, that's the type of decision where you have to weigh what do you do and what are the cost and benefits and cons of that play. Like, oh, if you Kumano turn 1, That means if you need to stomp, is it worth losing that +1/+1 ability from the stage 2 or not? And I don't know what is or isn't the correct play, but it is something that is subtle and a very, very big part of the deck and the game plan that, it isn't just very easy to play mono red. There is a lot of nuance in the decisions you make, whether you see it or you don't, right? And with that, let's go play a couple of matches and see if we are making hard decisions. Okay, well, we know what we're going to do here. We are going to Kumano on turn 1. And then we probably want to Burning-Tree into Kari Zev. Okay, our opponent is on the... What deck is it? Transmogrify Titan, probably, which actually seems very bad for us. And maybe, I don't think we can afford to keep up Stomp. I think we just need to go for it. And if they can Transmogrify it this turn, we're in a very bad spot. Oh, but they are elementals, right? So I don't know what they could have. Oh, I guess Titan is an elemental, right? So here, let's just attack with everything, see what our opponent does. Alright, block here. I think what I want to do is stomp the Goblin. So our Kari Zev lives, we kill all their creatures, and we're in a very, very... Oh, I need to order. And we're in a very good spot. I mean, I wouldn't say very good, but we're in an okay spot. Fire Prophecy. Kari Zev. Our opponent's gonna flip the Fable. We have the Stomp available on the Reflection if they do try to target it. And now we're gonna attack. Yeah, that was lethal. So good job. Now this is interesting. I think we do need the Ferocidon here. Because Titan seems very, very bad for us. Very, very bad. And I don't know if Reckless Rage is going to help us that much. Maybe Chainwhirler. The problem is I guess Reckless Rage is countering the Transmogrify a little bit. But I think the Ferocidon is more important. We probably take down a Torbran because we're increasing our mana by a lot. Though Torbran and Ferocidon are good. Do you want here? I think we do want a couple of rages still. Alright. Let's try. But also one of the benefits of mono red too is sometimes you kill your opponent very, very quickly, and if they don't have their combo on turn 3 or 4, you will win, right? And that's what this deck really, really preys upon. It is a very, very reliable, efficient way to play Magic. So, this is interesting. I guess... So, I guess, part of me really wants to Steam-Kin here, and then Burning-Tree next turn into Ferocidon. Because I don't want to die to an Anger of the Gods. And I think I want to just have a big Steam-Kin instead of just a lot of smaller creatures. Like, we'll do that here. Oh, Asika's Chariot? Okay. Alright. And I think I'm kind of glad. We can't attack yet. We can Reckless Rage next turn, though. Table. Well, here we go. We could still have a Titan, which would be very bad, but... Because they gain a lot of life. They can destroy the Embercleave. But they will take damage from the Ferocidon. Yeah. Oh, but they can't gain life with Ferocidon out, right? Opponent's at 3. And this is lethal, right? Opponent goes to 2. GG. Okay. That worked. Alright. Soul-Scar Mage into Runaway Steam-Kin. Beautiful. We kind of need something else, but alright. So I'm doing this here because I want to... Next turn, Steam-Kin will come to play with the counter, but I want to the following turn, Embercleave. Okay. We'll see what they do. They probably have Absorb, maybe? Saw it coming. Okay. They're at 12. I'm doing this. If they have a counterspell for Kari Zev, alright. Do you want to activate that? Yeah. This is worse if they have a March. Maybe. I was like, they could also have a Shark Typhoon for one to kill the Steam-Kin, but like, actually this isn't that bad. This isn't that bad, right? Now, do they have the Wandering Emperor? We'll see. GG. Alright, against blue, I think we want Fry. Probably can get rid of Reckless Rage. Add in a Hazoret and Chandra. And I think we're fine here. God, do we need Goblin Chainwhirler to get rid of the Planeswalkers? I don't know if we do, and I don't know if we need Ferocidon. I think we just want another aggressive start. Alright, well, we're gonna do Kumano into, I believe, Kari Zev again. It's a much bigger threat than the Steam-Kin. Ooh. Okay. They did not have a disruption. Oh, they are strict proctor. Oh, well, that changes everything I would have done. I don't know if it would have. I mean, on that turn, yeah, I would have Burning-Treed into something. Oh. One's gonna block there. Then gain a lot of life, everyone. I was not really playing around the Dream Trawler, so... Or a strict proctor deck, if we're being honest. Yeah. We lose. Okay.
You're just underwhelming.
I don't think we Ferocidon, though. I think we just go and hope to be aggressive. I think that's it. We're on the play. We're fine. Portable hole, okay. Unfortunate. Great Proctor into it again. Are you kidding me? Another Dream Trawler. That 5, 6, 7. Wait, is that lethal? I was about to say. The Wandering Emperor will destroy us. And we needed our opponent to not have a Dream Trawler there, and they did. Dark Typhoon, okay. Opponent's at 10. March. Okay, come on. Embercleave. Ugh. Opponent's, what, down to 1 here? Very, very close. I don't think we had lethal there any other way. But maybe we did. And they can't do that. Huh. For only 2 mana. I mean, we have to. If they have anything, not attacking is just bad. And they, yeah, GG, right? Good game, everyone. Yes. We have been joined by Luigi, everyone. So... Alright, looks like our opponent is on mono blue. And I think this is a decent matchup for us. The Runaway Steam-Kin is pretty good, mainly because one of the ways the mono blue player can keep up is by tempoing us and using their mana better than us. And the Steam-Kin kind of can help us stay in pace, but we need to draw cheaper things. We'll do that, and then at the end of our turn, maybe our opponent will tap out. And I'm sure they have a slip out the back or something here. Spell Pierce, okay. Now this is where our opponent could have counter magic. Bye, Luigi. Or maybe a bounce spell for the runaway. Okay. So what we're gonna do here is in response, so they're brazen borrowing to return that to our hand. In response, we will stomp the rattle chains, which will trigger the Steam-Kin, and we will get to be able to use the mana. Alright, that's countering that, but now we get to do that. That's going to be returned to our hand. And now we have a resolved Torbran, who can attack there for 4. And then I think we take out the Supreme Phantom while they're tapped out. There we go. We could have Steam-Kin, but then we can't Embercleave. We can wait to see what our opponent does here. And I think we'll try and cast Embercleave. Opponent only has one more card in hand, and we can attach it to the Burning-Tree. Another bounce spell would be very, very bad. If they don't have one, we're kind of fine. Okay. Alright, So they need something to deal with this, because otherwise it's lethal next turn. The Brazen Borrowers cannot block it. And so we are very happy. Good job. Now we have Fry here. And I think we do want Reckless Rage. We want to be able to interact with our opponent's spells. And I think we can maybe get rid of... I think we can get rid of Embercleave here. Embercleave is really, really powerful, but we want cheaper interaction, I think. And they have a lot... A resolved Embercleave on a creature is going to be GG for us a lot. But they have so much counter magic and bounce and interaction for it. I think if we're just aggressive, we can also beat them that way instead of having a card stuck in our hand. And I think then we could also maybe go down to Torbran. I don't know how aggressive we need to be. This could be wrong. It could be. But I like having the cheap interaction more than our bigger threats down the line. I think that is a good way to beat the mono-blue deck's game plan. Because I think one of the only ways we lose, because I think our creatures line up well against them, so I think we lose if we have our expensive spells stuck in our hand, specifically in our opening hand, and we allow our opponent to out-tempo us, right? But maybe that's wrong. Okay. Alright. This seems pretty great. And now... Yeah, I want to get this on turn 1, because I want to get the Steam-Kin going. And they have the Spectral Sailor. Okay. We could Fanatical Firebrand it. But I think we... Oh, wow, they don't have a land? So let's do that. This is gonna be amazing here. I can't... Yeah, no, alright. I can't imagine our opponent winning. Sadly. I mean, sadly for them. I was like, we could, like, they could have a Spell Pierce, right? And that would be bad. Alright. It was a good matchup. It's even better when your opponent keeps a one-lander and doesn't draw anything. I'll take it. Thank you for watching me play some Mono Red in Explorer. The deck is great. It is fast and very, very, very straightforward. That does not mean it's easy to pilot, right? I hope you saw that there were a lot of really interesting decisions in some of those games, right? And it could very well lead to game wins and losses, depending on what you think your opponent has, versus, you know, what you should or shouldn't do, right? There are a lot of different plays. You can be like, oh, if your opponent has the Wandering Emperor, this is better. But if your opponent only has counter magic, this is better, right? And I think that that's one of the fun parts about this deck is you can go for it and it's fine a lot of the time. But the games you lose and the matches you lose, you probably could have played around things maybe a little differently or sequenced things a little better against what your opponent ended up having, right? And that's really, really fun. And that's why also I love this deck. The games are also very, very quick. And that's really, really great. And I think if you want a powerful deck that you can play in games or play games very, very quickly, this is definitely for you. I think it's good in the meta right now, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. And it's also fun. And who doesn't like Embercleaving people on turn 4 and killing them? Everyone does. So with that, I hope you liked the video and maybe learned a thing or two. And if you haven't already, you should totally comment, subscribe, and like my YouTube videos. You can also watch me stream many days of the week at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve. And I hope you are having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Thanks for watching. Bye.